How a bill. How a bill becomes a law. How a bill becomes a law. How a bill becomes a law. Episode 20. Alright, bubs. The first step to how a bill becomes a law is that a bill is introduced. Now, a bill can be suggested by citizens, interest groups, and the president, but only members of Congress may introduce legislation. It's also another word for bill. So that means that I, Miss Seth, can suggest a law or a bill to my congressperson, but they're the only ones that can introduce it into Congress. A bill may be introduced in either house. That means it could be introduced in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. All House and Senate bills are labeled and numbered for identification. So if it was brought in from the House of Representatives, an example could be HR 1234. Or if it was brought into the Senate, it would be S3481. Things like that. The next step is that it is taken to committee action. A bill is referred to a specific standing committee, which then may be sent to a subcommittee for review. Remember, in the last episode, we talked about standing committees and subcommittees. So this is where it comes in. So the first thing is that it's referred to a standing committee and maybe a subcommittee. The committee or the subcommittee hearings are held in order to hear from supporters and opponents of the bill. So this is kind of where you get to state your opinion on the bill. After the hearings and the subcommittee approves a bill, the bill goes through a process which is called markup. And markup is where the exact phrasing of the bill is decided. So over here I have markup, and this is exact verbiage of bill. After markup, a bill must be approved by the full committee before it moves on to the floor. A bill that fails to be approved dies in the committee. That means it's done and over. Okay, quick recap. So, referred to a standing committee or a subcommittee. Then we go through hearings where people either are for or against the bill. After that, it goes through a process called markup, where we discuss the exact verbiage or phrasing of the bill. After markup, the bill must be approved, by the whole committee before it moves to the floor. If a bill is not approved by the full committee, it dies. Once a bill makes it past the committee hearings, it gets moved to the floor for debates and votes. Both the House of Representatives and the Senate have standard operating rules that guide procedures for the passage of a bill. For example, they vote, they have orders of business, timing, things like that. So, let's go over the House rules. Notice how I didn't write them down, so listen up carefully. So, in the House rules, they have 3 different types of hearings, or debates, actually. They have open debates, which allow representatives to propose any amendment that relate to the subject of the bill. And they have closed debates, which prohibit amendments of the bill altogether. So you can either have an open debate or a closed debate. Then there are the Senate rules. The Senate rules are much more flexible. There's no time limit spent on debating a bill. And there's no limit on number of amendments that may be offered. After all floor debates, Congress members vote, and a bill must pass with a simple majority vote. Pause. This brings us to an important key term. This key term is filibuster. It's also known as filibustering. What a filibuster is, it's an effort by one or more senators to hold up the final vote on a bill through delaying tactics. Most commonly, through non-stop speech making. And in class, the next time I see you, I will show you a clip of filibustering. It's actually really entertaining. Like, I'm not even kidding how funny it is to watch. An important thing about filibustering is that it only happens in the Senate and is done usually to allow an intense minority to block the actions of the majority. Okay, time in. Back to our steps. So, now that we've done our floor debates, the bill gets sent to the other chamber. Once the bill is sent to the other chamber, meaning if the bill started in the House of Representatives and it goes through the committee action and the floor debates, it gets sent to the Senate. The Senate would be the other chamber, or vice versa. It follows the same route through the committee and the floor actions. So, not only does the bill have to go through the committee and the floor on the House of Representatives, it then gets sent to the Senate and has to do the same thing. This chamber may approve the bill as received, it may reject it, it may ignore it, or it may amend it before passing it. Okay, so now we get to the conference committee. If only minor changes are made to a bill by the other chamber, usually the legislation goes back to the originating chamber for a concurring, meaning agreeing vote. So, if the bill starts in the House of Representatives and it gets to the Senate and the Senate only makes a few small changes, then the legislation or the bill goes back to the House of Representatives for an agreeing vote. However, when the House and the Senate versions of the bill contain significant and or numerous differences, a conference committee is officially appointed to reconcile, meaning work on, the differences between the two versions of the bill into a single bill. If the people in the conference committee, known as the conferees, are unable to reach an agreement, then the bill dies. So if this does not happen right here, if this doesn't, well, not what, hold on. Okay, so if the bill does not get approved, then the bill altogether dies. But if an agreement is reached, a conference report is prepared describing the committee members' recommendation for changes. Both House and Senate must approve of the conference report. If either chamber rejects it, then the legislation dies. So if they finally agree on the two bills becoming one, it's kind of like that Spice Girls song, When to Become One. Okay, it was a really bad singing of it, sorry. So if they can get it from 2 to 1, then the House of Representatives and the Senate need to agree on that. But if both houses cannot agree on it, then the bill dies. Do you see why passing laws in this country is so difficult? Because every time, if two people, not even two people, if two chambers can't agree on something, then the bill's going to die. It has so many chances to die. We need more chances to live. More chances to live. But guess what? We're on our last step, the presidential action. Okay, presidential action. After the conference report has been approved by both the House and the Senate, the final bill is sent to the president. If the president approves of it, he signs it and it becomes a law. Now, if the president does not take action for 10 days while Congress is in session, the bill automatically becomes a law. But if the president opposes the bill, he can veto it. Ooh, veto. And then the bill dies again. Or, if the president takes no action after Congress has adjourned its second session, it's called a pocket veto. Pocket veto. And then the legislation dies again. So there are 4 things the president can do. He can approve it right away. He can take no action, ignore it while Congress is in session, and it becomes a law. He can veto it or deny it right away. Or he can take no action after Congress has adjourned its second session. Remember, they have 2 sessions each year. After its second session, and it's pocket vetoed. And then the legislation dies. Now remember, just because something's been vetoed doesn't mean it can't come back to life. Remember, Congress can override a presidential veto if 2/3 of Congress votes on it. How many people make up 2/3 of Congress? I really hope you know that. I've asked you that I don't know how many times now. If you're not saying 357 people, I'm very sad. 357 people have to agree to override the presidential veto, and then the bill can still become a law. Okay, super quick recap on how the bill becomes a law. 6 steps. It's introduced by a congressperson, but it can be suggested by anyone. Goes through committee action. Goes through floor debates and votes. sent to the second chamber, where steps 2 and 3 are repeated. Then we get to a conference committee. After that, we end with presidential action.
You sure got quite a lot of steps to get to this Capitol building here in Washington. But I wonder who that sad little scrap of paper is.
I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm only a bill. And I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Well, it's a long, long journey to the capital city. It's a long, long wait while I'm sitting in committee. But I know I'll be a law someday. At least I hope and pray that I will. But today I am still just a bill.
Gee, Bill, you certainly have a lot of patience and courage.
Well, I got this far. When I started, I wasn't even a bill. I was just an idea. Some folks back home decided they wanted a law passed, so they called a local congressman, and he said, "You're right, there ought to be a law." And he sat down and wrote me out and introduced me to Congress, and I became a bill. Now I'll remain a bill until they decide to make me a law. I'm just a bill. Yes, I'm